Welcome to episode 8. It wouldn't surprise me if the main use for Title Studio is to make titles. However, I like to take an hour or so, whenever I get the chance, to play around with Title Studio and explore other possibilities. One of those possibilities is the ability to create animated route maps. In this tutorial, I'm using Title Studio without any host connected. I'm going to begin by adding new media, and I'm going to add an image file, my map. It's important that you use as large an image as possible. This one is 4,323 times 5,394 pixels, so when I open it, only the central 1920 by 1080 is visible on the screen. The next step before I begin drawing the route is to resize the map in the composite window so that the area I'm going to cover with the route is completely visible on screen. This step is very important and should not be missed. So I select the JPEG image track and adjust the master scale in the control panel. Left-click on the value and drag left or right to shrink or expand the image. To fine adjust the size, I release the left mouse button, place my cursor over the value and adjust the size incrementally by scrolling with the mouse wheel. I may also have to use the interactors here to reposition the map on the screen. Once I am happy with the map, I go back to the JPEG track and switch on the lock. Select the master track again, add new media. This time I'll add a spline object. Go up to the fill panel and switch off fill. Go to the border panel and switch on the first border level, T1. I move my cursor into the composite window. My pen tool should already be active. Now I have come to the most important part of this effect. I am going to use the pen tool to plot the route. I don't need to be accurate at this stage. The most important point is that I plot the route from start to finish on one single spline track. Here we go. I'll speed the rest of this up. Now that I have finished, I check down here and make sure that I only have one spline object track. If there was more than one, I would select them all, delete them, and try again. From this point on, I will be selecting various border colors and parameters for them. To help you follow along with me, I have put a link in the description for this episode to a PDF file with the parameter values. Click on T1 to show the color selection. I'm going to select a dark blue color. OK. I'm also going to go to edge width and set it to 12. Cap I'll set to round. Join I'll also set to round. Now you can see my route marked in blue. I might be happy with this rough route, but probably I'd want to make it a little more accurate. So I'm going to have to zoom in here to start adjusting the spline points. At this point, I have to be careful how I zoom and move around the map. I must, under no circumstances, use the parameter values for master scale or the X and Y positions to tweak the route. To zoom in, I will only use my mouse wheel to zoom in the actual composite window. To move the composite window around, I'll use the hand tool. For example, here I press H. Then, as I move the mouse pointer, it changes to a hand, and now I can move the composite window around. I'll maneuver to the beginning of the route at Cooper. Now I have to change back to the pen tool. You could click on the pen button here, but some earlier versions of Title Studio have a bug that causes the view to zoom out again. So I always switch between the hand tool and pen tool by using the keyboard shortcuts H for hand and P for pen. Press P on the keyboard. As soon as I move the cursor, it changes back to the pen tool. I click on the red line so that the spline points appear. Now I can begin adjusting the points. Using a combination of H and P, along with the various adjustments to the spline points, like changing from a cusp point to a smooth point, adding extra points, or removing surplus points, and so on. You may want to watch episode 7 again to refresh your memory on the various controls. I'll speed up the rest of my adjustments and fast forward to the destination. Now I have finished tweaking the first track. I go back to the default view of the composite window. I'm now going to make a second border to make the route stand out more. Activate the track below the blue one. Click on T2 to show the color. This time I'm going to select white. I'll make the width 6. The cap round and the join round. I check that I'm on the first keyframe of the spline object. Go to border begin and check that it is 0. And then border end and change it to 0. The white track will disappear. Change the interpolation for border end to linear. Now I move up and choose the blue T1 track. I change the border end to 0 and the blue track disappears. Change interpolation to linear. I can now go to the final keyframe and set the end positions. However, I like to have the route complete itself before reaching the end of the timeline. So I move the cursor to around 8 seconds. and create a keyframe by pressing Ctrl+N on the keyboard. Now I change border N to 100 and set the interpolation to hold. Next I go to the white T2 track and do the same. Border end 100 and hold. I'll play this back to check that the root is working correctly. That looks okay. I'll now twirl up this spline track and make a new one by duplicating it. However, I want to name the spline track first. With the spline track selected, press the Enter key on the keyboard. Now I can rename the track to Root. Then press Enter again. I'll now duplicate the track by holding down Ctrl and pressing D. Directly, I'll rename the upper root track to Vehicle. Press Enter, rename to Vehicle, and press Enter again. Now I'll twirl down the Vehicle track and go to Spline Object. I'm going to make some changes to the colours and some other parameters. First, I'll check that I have the first keyframe selected. Select the blue T1 track and change the colour to red. I'll change the width to 26. Border begin 0.1. And linear, border end 1.0, and linear. You can now see a red blob at Cooper. Select the white T2 track and change the colour to yellow. I'll change the width to 18. Border begin 0.1 and linear, border end 1.0, and it's already set to linear. You can now see a yellow vehicle with a red outline at Cooper. Now I'll move to this keyframe and select it. You'll notice that a red-yellow root appears. I don't want to see a root, I want to see the vehicle at the finish. I go to the red T1 track and change border begin to 99.1, and from there I want it to hold. Border end is already set correctly as 100 and hold. Now I go to the yellow T2 track and change the border begin to 99.1. And from there I want it to hold. As you can see, I now have the vehicle at the final position of Crail. Let's take a look at what I have now. Now I'm going to finish there. In the meantime, have fun playing with route maps. That's all from us for this time. Bye for now.